Like to call tonight's Lower Macungie Township Board of Commissioners workshop to order. If we could all please stand for a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on the agenda tonight is review resolution and plan for modified Mack Trucks Depot property project. Vince?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. All right, so Renee is putting this that plan up on the screen. Renee, we're on Mack Truck. All right, well, while Renee is pulling up the plan, I'm sure you're familiar with it. This isn't the first time that it was here in front of you at the workshop. But again, this is Mack Truck's amended final plan. And they're proposing to phase the truck movers plan on the parcel located at Quarry Road, adjacent to the existing facility. This was previously approved plan that was not phased. However, Mack Truck is proposing to phase the plan into approximately 3 phases as spelled out in the resolution. As part of the phasing plan, due to the use of the emergency access south on Quarry Road, they're going to be using that as the main access until the final phase is completed, with the new access across from their current entrance on Quarry Road. So we've asked Orchard. Oh, I'm sorry, Orchard. I did say Quarry before. Thank you, Bruce. Orchard Road. So we, like I said, we have reviewed this before, but since then we have met with Mack and received review letters reviewed by a township engineer, and we've asked Mack Trucks for the following items based on the board's original feedback. So we've asked Mack to perform outreach to the adjoining property owners on Orchard Road, and they have completed that. We've also asked them to perform a bridge evaluation, which would be prior to the commencement of any construction, as well as a subsequent evaluation upon the completion of the main access in the final phase, and that any repairs, excuse me, or restoration will be the responsibility of Mack Truck. And then we'd also had talked preliminarily with Mack about considering working with the township during the installation of the emergency access, and that working with the township, that will bring the turnaround area into compliance with PennDOT standards on Orchard as well. So again, as you can see, the plan is in front of you tonight. If anyone has any questions, engineering questions, I would defer to Engineer McAdam, or any questions on the resolution or any other questions, be happy to entertain any.
Okay, any questions for either Vince or the engineer?
Good.
Oh, Mr. Robert.
Okay, for starters, there's a discrepancy between the zoning officer's letter and the engineer's letter that Chris is saying that it's zoned industrial, and the engineer is saying it's zoned commercial.
Yeah, my letter is wrong.
Okay,
Yeah, I have the wrong zoning district noted, purely cut and paste error. So that's completely on me, and I've revised that already for the next letter that goes out.
okay. Okay, and in the conditions, there's an indication that they ought to change the address on, or identify the address on Sauerkraut Lane, and Orchard might be a little more appropriate. On item 22.
Number 24.
24, okay.
Question was about the address clarification being Sauerkraut as opposed to Orchard.
Yeah, it's item 22. We will address that.
Bruce, the resolution changed by 2 conditions, and I think that's why there's a discrepancy. You probably have the first one, and Maury has the second one. I don't know, Renee, did you distribute the new one or?
Yeah, we received the new one probably after, over the weekend after this one. So there is item 22 in here, which we have to make sure is addressed and changed.
Right. And the only change, Commissioners, is that there were 2 conditions of Brian's letter, and it has to do with what Vince spoke about in terms of the bridge and a pre-construction inspection. We brought those into the body of the resolution as opposed to just the incorporation by reference of Brian's letter because of its significance. So that's what this.
Okay. Actually, while talking about the road name, there are only, I believe, 2 residents that live on Orchard on that side of the tracks. And it would seem to me from a safety perspective, it would make more sense to rename the road Shonek and have it just be an extension of Shonek to the tracks. And so then people might not get as confused of trying to go across the tracks to get from one side to the other, either trucks or emergency vehicles or whatever.
I'm sorry, Maury, what was the road name you suggested? I'm sorry, what was the road name you suggested?
Shanick.
Shonek, because it's the intersection of, well, no, actually, that wouldn't,
That
okay.
would,
so-
that wouldn't work. Shane.
Yeah, so,
Shane
but anyway,
Extension
name it something else.
instead of Orchard.
Yeah. Just as a thought.
Mac Lane.
And, okay, the next item is associated with the inspection and maintenance. I'm concerned that the expense of building the bridge over the creek is going to be rather high, and they might not ever build that. And so we could end up in a situation where for years and years, they're using the emergency exit as the real exit. And the way the condition is written, it looks like after they do the initial inspection, they can wait until the bridge is at the bottom of the creek before they inspect it again, if they don't build the other bridge. So I would like to see that condition beefed up somewhat. And furthermore, I did not see explicitly where it said at any point that the parking lot would be paved. It makes reference to final grading and so forth, but it doesn't, I don't see any indication that at what phase the parking lot is actually going to be paved, or is it?
As currently shown, I believe it's to be paved in phase 3.
What?
The way it's currently shown on the plan, the paving would be phase 2? All right, phase 2, sorry.
So if that could be explicitly stated that the paving of the parking lot would be undertaken with phase 2 by the commission. Those are my only concerns.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns for either Vince or Brian? Okay. Next item up for discussion, review resolution and plan for Hamilton Square project.
All right, yeah, thank you again, Mr. Higgins. Give me 1 second, please.
Yep.
All right, so this is the Hamilton Square project. Renee does have that up in front of you right now. You did see this before in a conditional use hearing. So this project, just to give a little overview, again, the applicant here intends to consolidate 5 lots into a single lot for development of the property. The property, once consolidated, will consist of a little over 1.6 acres. Property is located currently in the Wescosville Commercial Zoning District, where restaurants that exclude drive-throughs and also coordinated commercial developments are permitted by conditional use. Because of that, due to that, I should say, the Planning Commission reviewed the conditional use application at its October 8th, 2024 meeting. They recommended approvals with certain conditions. I'm sorry, so then it came in front of the board and it was approved in January for the conditional use, January 16th, 2025. It then went back to the Planning Commission, which they recommended approval March 11th, 2025. And it is here tonight for your questions and concerns at the workshop. So between that time, though, we have currently, the township engineer, staff, and zoning office has reviewed the plan for landscaping, lighting, compliance with all design guidelines, stormwater, parking, site and traffic circulation, building layout, pedestrian safety on the lot and off the lot, and also any pedestrian outdoor spaces that are provided for the public. And Renee, if you wouldn't mind putting up the renderings as well for the board. So I just want to, I think everyone is familiar with the project at this time. I just know that, staff, as well as our consultants, we're aware during the conditional use process that the board is concerned with any potential uses, the parking and stormwater as concerns for staff to look at. So we did want to bring, I did want to bring attention to stormwater and parking. So as staff, we have identified drainage patterns coming from the development, and they were altered in accordance with the SALDR requirements. The applicant shall provide written consent from affected landowner, which shall be filed on the record plan, which is in the engineer's letter. I just want to bring to the board's attention at this time, we have not received any consent from the applicant. I think one other, another concern that I'd like to bring to the board's attention, the applicant has not confirmed the uses as related to the parking requirements. And really our main concern here is that during the tenant fit-out stage, that parking calculations change or exceed the estimated calculations on the plan. The applicant may have to go through and submit a modified land development plan. So as staff, as in relation to this item directly, we have to assure the development will not exceed the proposed parking. That could, if it does, it may inhibit internal circulation, as well as any type of emergency vehicle access, or we don't want it to affect parking on adjacent properties, and or potentially, I don't think would happen, but on Hamilton Boulevard. So those are the concerns, that we had, that I wanted to bring to the board's attention, and would be happy to entertain any questions further on any items. But again, just want to bring those 2 items to the board's attention tonight.
Any questions for Vince or Brian on this? Go ahead.
Is this the project that Hamilton Crossings wouldn't allow us to tie into the storm system? Did the applicant reapproach them to try to get that agreement to do that?
At this point, we have not received any correspondence from the applicant.
I
'Cause
might,
I know at
I
that
might
time-
highlight for you on the resolution, the paragraph C, in terms of waivers. There is one waiver that's kind of in dispute, and I just want to bring that to your attention because you'll need to decide it. And that's a waiver from section 22A 7082B, having to do with notification to your adjoining landowner when there's a discharge. So of course, the developer, because there's no discharge, no increase in rate, doesn't think this applies, and staff thinks it applies.
The second thing, I know you said that mid-January, this was approved. What, turning radiuses, but you had concern for President Higgins.
Yeah.
Was that addressed?
It-
I didn't hear the end of that question. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Butler said when it was before us in January, we talked about turning radiuses, especially for emergency vehicles. And was anything changed or amended for that?
Yes, the current submission includes revised truck turning templates to show that vehicles can adequately navigate the site. Yes.
And if I'll add to that, thank you, Brian, I'll add to that with the current parking right now, right? And that's potential because of the uses.
And I think to add to Vince's addition, one of the concerns that's been raised relates to the size of trucks that could use the site. And I believe in the traffic engineer's review, there are concerns about trash trucks when they can use the site. And my understanding is the applicant is committed to only having trash trucks between certain hours, after hours. And we recommend that that be included in any approval. So it's a restriction of sorts. And obviously, if anything bigger than the size of the truck on the plan that will adequately navigate the site, anything bigger than that, then the site should be signed to not permit anything bigger than. So, but in terms of the turning templates that we talked about in January, that has in fact been addressed, yes.
Being you brought up the garbage, the location of the dumpsters was in question also
Mhm.
because that was in the diagonally, the opposite corner. And there was talk that maybe that would get revised. Is
Yeah,
that
my-
the same location? or
My
is that-
recollection was that the conditional use plan and the land development plan had two different locations. The current land development plan location, I believe, is consistent with with what was on the conditional use plan, and we're comfortable that that aspect has been addressed, yes.
And one last question, the potential tenant, what parking allowance was given to them now? The number of parking spots?
It's based on an assumption, I believe roughly half of the site for retail, roughly half of the site for restaurants. Yeah. So it's literally just an assumption, and that's what's been stated on the plan.
Wasn't part of the conditions though that we needed to know what was going in there before we could approve the plan?
Yes.
And we still don't know what's going in there officially. We have
Not-
assumptions.
Not to staff's knowledge, correct?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I have a problem approving this plan the way it is. We're not meeting what the conditions are asking for, especially when it comes to parking. You know, it seems very crowded in there to begin with. If for some reason one of those locations became a third restaurant or somewhere down the road became a third restaurant, that's going to be a problem. I'm also not very comfortable with, even though maybe Hamilton Crossings is not responding well, that we don't have in either a letters from them saying we're not responding or a letter from the applicant saying we've reached out and they haven't responded. Those would be two big sticking points for me on this. And I share the concern that staff has about that. But one of the things about conditional uses is in order to build something in an area that has conditional uses, you should meet those before we approve any kind of land development. So I would say if this came to me right now as a, final land development, I would be a no. because it doesn't meet the conditions set forward in the conditional use. So that's just my 2 cents. Again, it's only my opinion, but there are rules and conditions for a reason. And if we can't just do things on spec, because that's how we get ourselves.
Well, I had the same concerns, and that's why I brought them up, especially with the sewer system, that we couldn't cut across that short area to tie into a good, a clean water system that's already in place. Other question?
Anything else? Bud, do you want to address any of this? I know it's your. Yeah, sure. Just come up to the microphone if you could.
We've had numerous discussions with the people at the Hamilton Crossings, which I know them very well. And they said that because of the relationship they have with their tenants, they can't prove any changes to the system. So we've designed the system there so it acts as it does right now, that the surface discharge to an inlet on the adjacent property, which, isn't the best situation. It would be better if we could tie directly to the inlet on the property, but it is duplicating the condition. The flow that goes to that inlet is less than what is going there right now at the present time. And the condition that it goes to the inlet is the same as it is right now. So that's the best that we could do with the situation that they put us under. As far as the parking's concerned, we do have provisions on the plan. They're still, until they're able to know when the project's going to be available to lease, the broker doesn't, have the leases yet for the property. So they don't know exactly who's going to go into the property. We have conditions written into the plan that it's, the number of parking spaces. There's a requirement based on your ordinance of how many seats they can have with restaurants and how much retail space is available. There's notes on the plan already that says that before, at the building permit stage, when they come in to get the building permit, the zoning officer, we have to review that with the zoning officer. The zoning officer has to approve the uses at that point in time. That's when we'll know who the users are going to be for the project. At this point in time, we do not know who those users are going to be until the broker can define who it's going to be. They can't sign any leases until they know when the projects can be able to be built.
Does the applicant have any documentation about the conversations with Hamilton Crossings in terms of either a certified letter sent to them or a response from them? Or is it just
They've had conversations, but nothing in writing.
nothing in writing? I mean, that would be a big help. So we know that has been exhausted, because that is
Wow.
absolutely the optimal way to do this.
I'll talk to the attorney and we'll see
Okay.
about getting that.
And then as far, I mean, I'm going by what the conditions are that were put out there, that were approved, and what the applicant agreed to. And it calls for knowing what's going in there before it's approved. And it's not a situation of, well, we'll know when we get building permits. That's not what the condition reads. And they agreed to the conditions. So
I didn't remember the condition being quite that way, Brian, but we'll go back and view that.
yeah, I mean, it's important, because more and more we get things that come this way that 5-10 years down the road, it changes and it becomes an issue because this was the plan that was approved as is. But if it is a situation where over time it turns around, or they decide when they're leasing it out, they can lease out 3 spaces to restaurants, and then we have to do a supplemental plan to make sure the parking is right. This is a tight piece of property to begin with. 2 buildings on this property with this type of parking makes it difficult. And I realize it's difficult for the applicant as well, but we also have to look out for the best interests of the residents long-term, that what we're approving is exactly what they're going to get and not something that's changed down the line. And I know you understand that. I'm just, you're here, I'm part of the applicant, so I'm just kind of letting you know my thoughts.
No, I agree with it. I don't think this is something that's going to be resolved before Thursday night. So it's just something that we could continue this till your meeting the 3rd.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what.
I don't think
I don't know what the timelines are on this, Bruce or Vince.
we could.
We would probably ask the applicant for an extension. However, the board would have to take action on May 15th meeting. That's the
Without an
deadline.
extension.
That's without an extension, the board would have to
Okay.
take action on May 15th, correct?
I mean, just being a layman here, I would encourage the applicant to grant an extension because,
Yeah.
like I said, if this came between now and the 15th, I don't know that I could say yes to that. And then it's starting from scratch.
No, I know Attorney Peperato is not available for this Thursday night, so I think,
Okay.
they'll grant extension of time.
I would
Vince?
just like to add for the board, I don't think, the way that Mr. Newton has explained it, I don't think it's right to say that the zoning officer at the time will make a determination of the uses. I think that's what the process is for now,
Mhm.
so that the zoning officer has a guiding document to go back and make sure the uses are in conformance with the documents as approved by the board. So,
Sure.
to say that the zoning officer would look at the uses and calculate the parking, I think that's not really, how the process
Yeah.
works.
Well, and I think it needs to be buttoned up more concrete before that. It shouldn't fall
Correct.
on the zoning officer to make determinations based off what's approved. And it's hard to approve something when you don't know exactly what it is.
Correct.
I'll
So,
go back, I'll go
yeah.
back to the broker too and see if he's further along with his notices. of
That would be
intent.
great, bud. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll find out if we get more information. But
Excellent.
I know we won't have that by Thursday night, so we'll
Sure.
ask for the extension of time.
Yeah, that would probably be best.
Okay,
All right.
very good, thank you.
Thanks, bud. Any other questions for either Vince or Brian on this? Yes.
If you don't mind, just so we're clear with Bud, in light of, not in light of, in addition to getting something in writing that Hamilton Crossings either doesn't answer a certified letter or something, we need something in writing, but that will also prompt the need for a waiver request. That's not currently on the plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just as a matter of documentation, get that in, officially submit a waiver request with that in mind.
Makes sense.
Very good, thank you.
All right. Thanks, bud. Okay, next item up for discussion, review resolution and plan for amended Bait Simca plan. Vince.
All right, thank you. Again, as you can see, Renee has put up on the screen the amended plan for Bet Simca, and this has been in front of the board at a previous workshop. And since then, we have staff as well as a township engineer has been working through review letters with the applicant. Not much has changed since the last time you have seen it. They are proposing the phasing plan. They have been working with Lehigh County Conservation District on their phasing plan, which seems to be going well with Lehigh County Conservation District. I will note, though, that one item has changed that I wanted to bring to the board's attention. The applicant now has received, well, let me back up. The original approved plan allowed overflow parking onto the Trexlertown Grange and showed a crosswalk for people to safely get across the street from the west side of Grange Road to the east side where Bet Simca Fellowship is located. Since that time, the applicant has recalculated their parking calculations and sees the need for 7 to 5 extra spaces. We just received correspondence today that 2 of the spaces would be in the attached garage, so that would mean they'd need 5 off-street parking. Myself and Brian did not get a chance to really delve into that. However, we would tend to agree that it would be 7 at the most off premises. So they have provided an agreement with Binder's Automotive. They are on the corner of Hamilton and Grange. There is a connecting sidewalk in front of their property, Bet Simca, which they have installed, and it does connect directly to Binder's. I was out to the property today. It appears there are adequate spaces to accommodate that. So the question, the applicant is asking to not install the crosswalk across Grange Road. So as well as looking at Binder's today, my site visit, there is no connectivity or sidewalks or paths on the west side of Grange Road. So essentially, if we would be putting crosswalk there, would be putting people onto private property, not to access the car, their vehicle, I should say. So at this time, we don't feel that, it is necessary if they can provide that parking at Bender's garage.
I would also add to that, that typically don't want mid-block crossings that aren't completely justified. And since the applicant has now obtained permission from property owner on the same side of the street, I would agree with Vince that we really would rather not have that crosswalk. However, it was specifically shown on the approved plan. So we would need board approval. The applicant needs board approval to take it off.
And they did not show that on their modified
Right.
plan. They did take it off the modified plan.
Right.
Okay.
But I just wanted to bring that up as it was I thought a point that, a large point between the two plans.
But really, other than that, this is, in my view, kind of a paper exercise. The applicant basically ran out of money, and they can't finish the plan as previously approved, which was approved as one phase. So with a lot of generous help from township staff, we've kind of walked them through what actually has to happen as far as the process, excuse me, to get the previous approval amended. Basically, what's going on is it's an amended plan to show two phases where there was only one. All of the improvements that need to be in for right now are in or are in the process of being finished. Our inspectors have been out there. There's a punch list that they're working on, the applicant's working on. It's really just what will be left is to construct the synagogue itself and a couple of storm drains around it. And I believe some landscaping. That's it. That's the only thing that would be done in the next phase. It's just that it wasn't contemplated at the time of the original approval. And we've tried to pull things together with the applicant to get a plan in hand that we could recommend to the township that it would be approved. We'd still need an amendment to the development agreement. We would need to work with the applicant as well as with David to determine what we want to do in terms of closing out the original escrow and the maintenance agreement, not maintenance agreement, I'm sorry, the original escrow tabulation, close that out, get the money released at the appropriate time, and then do they post money for the next phase or not? More than likely, it could be handled with a building permit. The way the approval resolution is structured, they are limited to a time frame within which to get that done. If it doesn't get done at that time, and I'm greatly paraphrasing here, they'd have to come back in with an amended, another land development approval. So the township is protected with the way that David has crafted the resolution. But for all intents and purposes, this is basically a paper exercise to kind of bring the synagogue, kind of make them whole so they can at least move on and be done with what they have. Fair?
No, yeah, fair enough. Thank you, Brian. I just want to add to Brian's, again, the letter we received today from Bet Simca asked for 10 years instead of 5 years, number 11 for the resolution, but staff still remaining to recommend the 5 years.
Yeah.
We don't want to go further than.
No, I think that 5 is plenty. It kind of prompts them to get their ducks in a row, and if they can't, they can't. It's not because we're trying to penalize them, but I can tell you that I have other projects in other municipalities with religious institutions, and they typically never have all the money that they really need to get these done. And one of the ones that we're struggling with in a different municipality is it's got to be beyond 10 years and they're not done. So I think David's choice of the 5 years is ideal, and it protects the township as well.
Questions for Vince or Brian on this?
Just a question for Vince. Do we have an actual contract with Benders or just the letter we saw today?
Just a letter, so they're going to have to provide that in accordance with the resolution.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next item, review resolution for selling personal property. Bruce?
Thank you. We've been working with staff and the Public Works Department is doing some house cleaning over there. You'll see before you, resolution, as per the state law that deems this, property to be, approved for sale. We'll use our municipal bid, component so they can go to public auction. But, it's necessary per our policy that the board, authorize us to, advertise and then dispose of these assets. So just a heads up on what's out there. We'll hit municipal bid fairly soon after your approval. This will get us at least for the first part of this year. I'm sure there may be some additional things later in the year. So it's a good starting point for what we have.
Okay, any questions for Bruce on the personal property resolution? Okay, review resolution amending the fee schedule. Bruce?
We have one item on here. It's just an update as EMAC has raised their rate for the swim lesson participation part. So we need to adjust that in the recreation item for $85 now. So that's the only item we have for the update.
Any questions on the fee change? Okay, review upgrading of emergency services radiator.
So we had previously spoken about this at various meetings, just so for the public and for those that might not be aware. The county's moving to a new updated radio system for emergency services for police, fire, and EMS. As part of their program, they are offering 0% financing to municipalities for a period of 5 years. If the municipality chooses to participate, with that, they based a set allotment to municipalities from the radio numbers provided from both EMS as well as, in our case, fire. So we've worked to put that number together we've notified the county that would like to participate. We're working with the fire department and EMS. They've both given the quotes necessary, and we've secured hopefully the funding, at least in principle with the county. It's necessary that we will have a more substantial agreement with the county in a future meeting once they finalize their pricing and part of the process. We're also working with legal at this point to come up with a note for both fire and EMS of repayment back to the township for us being the individuals that are seeking this funding or this ability to purchase that way. So we've actually got a draft today of that. I have to share it with fire yet at this point and EMS once I review it and clean it up. And just to kind of let the board know and the public again, this request is about $630,000, $140,000 from the from McCungy ambulance, about $480 for the fire department. So under what the county had figured, and with the quoting and the choice of equipment, that's gotten us to that number. So I still think, and we've had the discussions, it's better to take the county's money for free for the next 5 years and use that as opposed to putting fire and emergency services out of those dollars up front. So we'll keep the board updated. I wanted you to have the background, know that we're still working. We have some more conversations to do with fire and EMS once that note gets done, and then we'll be ready to move forward. And we'll keep you updated at a future agenda when this comes before you to engage with the county. So it's where we are. We're in process.
Questions for Bruce? Okay, manager update, Regional Act 537 plan.
Yeah, I just wanted the board to be aware and the public. We've received the Regional Act 537 sewer facilities planning for the ongoing regional look at 537 planning. So as part of the process, it needs to go to the Planning Commission, which we have scheduled for it to be revealed in May at the upcoming meeting. There'll be a chance for the public, the Planning Commission, and eventually the board to make any comments necessary for the plan to move forward. This is the time for the residents to be engaged in the process, see anything that they have for feedback, and we have to note that feedback, in the plan to the DEP that we've received certain items. So this takes a little bit of time. With that reveal in May, I believe it has to sit, I think it's 60 days for the public comment period. So that takes us to late summer. We'll have to have that back in front of the board in early fall, along with several agreements in principle with our partners at both Lehigh County Authority and the other 13 municipalities that are engaged in this process. I would note to the board to pay special attention. This is more focused on source reduction. I know that's always a discussion at budget time. And this source reduction is put on paper, and this actual plan for the next 5 years to submit to the DEP so that the township and our peers are continuing to become compliant with the standards of the state to reduce I&I. So inflow and infiltration for those that don't know that lingo, but the township has been working for the last, several years and spending millions of dollars for sewer ratepayers to upgrade our system. This is part of those improvements are necessary with this. So just wanted the board to be mindful that that is linked. Our source reduction is linked to this plan, which is linked to the 537 overall component that allows, new connections and, basically service for things that may be coming through the eyes of the DEP. So it's very complex. We've been working a long time on this. It won't be our last one. And we're hopeful that, it will move forward through the DEP. But we also need to be mindful, the board must consider a resolution as with all of the rest of the peers that are involved. So we're hopeful that, there's been enough consensus built and public information out to these other municipalities that they understand the significance of the consideration of these resolutions and becoming approved on a unanimous nature. So hopefully we can spread that word, with our partner elected officials, and they understand the gravity of the situation. So that's where we are. If you want to hear about the plan, it'll be revealed, like I said, at the May PC meeting here in like 2 weeks. It's actually available as well for the public for view at the township building. So anytime people have questions, they can come and see the entire plan. So that's the update on the 537 planning.
Any questions for Bruce? Yes, Maury.
Bruce, are there any updates on potential land acquisitions?
I can give you some updates on some land acquisitions. We've, as we've stated at the last Board of Commissioners meeting, we did execute the transaction paperwork for the Dan Weber property that is now held in the township's hands. We are working to finish the transactions for the Muse property, the Killereski property. We're scheduling the closing so that can be completed. And we're working to make the financial offer as necessary for the condemnation process for the Faith Church property. So we are working to get those several transactions closed. I would say by Tuesday of next week, the money transfers will happen and the official closing for Killereski will be completed. So those are updates for all of those components. As the public might not be aware, there's been a significant, almost $15 million investment in open space and other spaces in this township. So we're moving forward with that, and a big step for us to get those completed. So,
Okay, any other questions for Bruce? Okay, department reports. Are there any departmental reports this evening? Okay. Any public comment on agenda topics? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.